Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we take a stack of compelling sources and really give you the blueprint for what matters.
And today we're looking at something that, well, it really upends the last century of economic thinking.
It really does. We're wrestling with this truly radical idea that the foundation of global power has just fundamentally shifted. We've always talked about gold, about oil, the whole petrodollar world.
But our sources are suggesting that era is, for all intents and purposes, obsolete.
Absolutely. The central idea we're diving into is that the core currency of the 21st century isn't a barrel of crude or a printed dollar anymore. It's something much more, well, fundamental. It's electricity.
Specifically, the kilowatt-hour,
Exactly.
And it's a profound shift because for the first time in our completely digital electric age, the economic base layer isn't anchored in institutional trust, which is what all fiat money is. It's anchored in physics.
We're going back to something tangible.
In a way, yes. We're seeing a return to a world where value is directly tied to productive output, but that output is now 100% dependent on a measurable unit of energy.
And that's the real hook, isn't it? Our mission today is to figure out why the kilowatt hour is so suited for this role, and maybe more importantly, how one nation, China, is building its entire national strategy around it.
Creating the world's first electrostate. That's the term they use.
An electrostate. It's an incredible concept. The sources are talking about the end of the petrodollar and the rise of the electrodollar.
And the strategic implication of that is just staggering. We need to unpack why this simple unit of energy is suddenly functioning as the ultimate store of strategic value.
Okay, so let's start there. Let's unpack that shift. We've always linked currency to labor or resources, but fiat money kind of broke that link. So how is electricity bringing it back?
Well, it's simple, really, because it's just physics. The intrinsic value of 1 kilowatt hour is its non-negotiable ability to do work.
To perform a computation, to move something, to create something.
Exactly. It's the raw input for everything in a modern economy. And here's the key thing. Unlike a dollar, you can't just print a kilowatt hour. It has to be generated. It takes effort and physical resources.
I saw one quote that just captured this perfectly. It said, just physics, no politics, no inflation.
That's its power. And you can see how it has all the attributes of traditional money. It's measurable, it's divisible, so you can have precise transactions.
And it's universal. You can't run a factory or train an AI model without it.
Right. And because it takes real work to generate, its value is always tangible. It's directly linked to productive output.
Okay, but I know what you, the listener, are probably thinking right now. Electricity isn't gold. You can't really store it easily, and getting it from A to B is incredibly lossy.
Oh, massively lossy.
The sources mention losses from, 20% to sometimes even 70% in some areas. So how can something so ephemeral be a currency?
And that's the critical nuance here. We have to be really clear. China isn't treating the KOI like, cash in your wallet. The sources acknowledge those barriers. It's not a literal currency. Instead, you should think of state-controlled electricity like the gold reserves in a central bank's vault.
Right.
The state controls the vault, the entire national grid, and it allocates that gold, the power, to strategic sectors that push forward its national goals.
So it's a strategic asset, not a medium of exchange.
Exactly. It gives the state this profound economic leverage over its own industrial base, which is just impossible in a liberalized open energy market.
That makes perfect sense. But for this electrodollar to work, you need infrastructure on a scale that's just hard to imagine.
Yeah.
So where does this state-controlled mint begin? It has to start with controlling the supply.
And it's a staggering undertaking.
Right.
Beijing is securing its domestic supply on a world-changing scale, mostly with renewables. I mean, just look at the raw ambition of it. Between 2024 and 2030, China plans to install 3,200 gigawatts of new renewable capacity.
That number is worth repeating, 3,200 gigawatts. That single figure is nearly 60% of the entire world's new additions in that period.
And they're moving so fast, they hit their 2030 target of 1,200 gigawatts 5 years early.
Back in 2025.
Yeah. And when you pull that far ahead of schedule on a target that massive, you're fundamentally lowering the long-term energy costs for your entire industrial base. Everything you produce becomes cheaper.
And this isn't some free market miracle. It's managed by state giants like the State Grid Corporation of China, the SGCC.
Right. They announced a 650 billion yuan investment in 2025 alone, just for the grid.
And to put that number in context for everyone, 650 billion yuan is more than the GDP of a lot of medium-sized countries. This isn't just about making power, it's about moving it strategically.
Which brings us to the UHV lines.
The 38 operational ultra-high voltage lines.
These things are the nervous system of the electrostate. They use incredibly high voltages, over 1,000 kilovolts, to move huge blocks of power over vast distances with way less loss than a normal line.
So instead of losing, say, 30 or 40% of the energy over a long distance, the UHV tech makes it efficient enough to be strategically viable.
Precisely. They're like these massive strategic arteries. They pump power from the mega bases in the interior where all the wind and hydro is cheap and abundant.
And send it straight to the power-hungry industrial centers on the coast.
Yeah, but that does raise a tough question politically. You're generating power in poorer interior regions and then sending it all to the wealthy coast.
So how does the state justify that?
The justification is, well, simple.
Yeah.
National interest. The stated goal is total energy sovereignty. They want to insulate the country's growth from any external shocks, any geopolitical games.
And that control over electricity is the bedrock.
It's the bedrock of tech sovereignty. That's the phrase they use over and over.
Okay, so if controlling the supply is step one, let's talk about how the state spends this energy currency. This is where we get to the differential electricity pricing policy.
This is the ultimate carrot and stick. It allows Beijing to perform this kind of highly effective economic triage.
So the stick is punishing industries they don't want.
Right. Low value, high consumption stuff like basic steel or cement production, they get hit with higher and higher electricity rates. It forces them to either upgrade or just shut down.
And the carrot is where they pour the subsidy. Strategic sectors get cheap, preferential power. And the clearest case study for this is artificial intelligence.
This is where it all comes together. The state is offering massive electricity subsidies. We're talking up to a 50% cut on power bills for the enormous data centers run by giants like Alibaba and Tencent.
They're literally funding their digital future with cheap energy. But there's a catch, isn't there? A crucial condition that makes this a real game changer.
A huge one. The condition is that these companies must use locally made Chinese AI chips, things like Huawei's Sen series.
So China's making a trade-off, a very expensive one. The sources say these domestic chips are often inferior, maybe like NVIDIA's chips from back in 2019. They're less efficient.
So why do it? Why accept that?
It's about sovereignty, right?
It's long-term technological sovereignty at any cost. By linking the power subsidy to the chip usage, the government is just bypassing the market. It's using cheap electricity to directly fund and scale up its own domestic chip industry.
So they're building market share for their own chips, making sure they can't be cut off by sanctions down the line.
Trading efficiency for security, that's the calculation.
And you can see the urgency when you look at AI's energy appetite. It's just unquenchable.
It really is. I mean, the energy cost to train a model like GPT-4 was reportedly 42.4 gigawatt hours.
Wow. Put that in perspective for us.
Okay, so that's enough electricity to run over 3,000 average American homes for an entire year for one training run.
That's insane.
Yeah.
And with global data center demand set to more than double by 2030, that resource becomes the ultimate strategic choke point.
It's exactly why they have the East Data West Compute initiative. They're physically moving the data centers, the computation, out to the west where the cheap hydro and wind power is. They're making sure their digital ambitions are never constrained by energy.
And if you needed any more proof that electricity is the ultimate strategic asset, you just have to look at the 2021 crackdown on cryptocurrency mining.
Right. The official line was financial stability, but the deeper analysis in our sources points to strategic asset reclamation.
They saw a leak.
A massive, uncontrolled leak of the state's most valuable asset. From Beijing's perspective, crypto mining was just burning vast amounts of their foundational electricity to create a decentralized, uncontrolled store of value. It was a competing currency.
So by banning it, they instantly freed up gigawatts of power.
And reallocated it. Straight to AI, to advanced manufacturing, to industries the state actually wanted. It was them reclaiming their monopoly over the electro-dollar.
A clear signal. That power belongs to the state, and the state decides where it goes.
Exactly.
Okay, so that's the internal doctrine, sovereignty through controlling the kilowatt hour. Now we have to look outward. How is this projected globally? What are the future developments?
Well, this is the external face of the electrostate model. China is now leveraging its own massive industrial capacity, the very solar panels, wind turbines, grid hardware it built for itself, to create a new network of global partnerships.
They're positioning themselves as the hub of an alternative system.
And you can see that in the recalibrated Belt and Road Initiative, the BRI. It's not just about big loans for ports and railways anymore. The focus has shifted very clearly to high-quality investments in energy and tech.
I saw a figure on that. Renewable energy investments under the BRI hit a record $9.7 billion in just the first half of 2025.
So they're exporting the tech that allows other nations to build energy independence, but it's all built on a foundation of Chinese hardware and Chinese standards. They're essentially creating client electrostates.
And at the same time, they're building the institutions to bypass the Western dollar-denominated system.
A huge push there, reinvigorating the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, the SCO, proposing a new SCO development bank, and they formally pledged to do more trade in local currencies.
To get around the risk of U.S. sanctions.
It's a direct challenge to the supremacy of the petrodollar.
And this all ties into the deepening Sino-Russian energy partnership. It's a massive geopolitical hedge.
It's strategic for both of them. It gives Russia a huge economic lifeline against Western sanctions, and for China, it provides a secure overland energy supply that isn't vulnerable to U.S. naval power in places like the Strait of Malacca.
And the scale of that connection is just immense now. Russian oil was nearly 20% of China's imports in 2024. Pipeline gas has nearly tripled its share in just 3 years.
This isn't just about buying energy, it's about building a fundamentally different economic architecture. The conclusion from all the sources is pretty clear. The nations that control the full stack, from the solar panels and grid hardware all the way up to the semiconductors that run the AI, they're the ones who will write the rules for this century.
It's a powerful and, frankly, a very coherent argument. This kilowatt-hour doctrine is defining an alternative geo-economic order built on state capitalism, on energy security, and technological sovereignty. It's an assertion that controlling the kilowatt means controlling the century.
And that really brings us to a final, provocative thought for you to consider. We've spent all this time talking about algorithms and AI models, but the source material keeps reminding us that the ultimate constraint here is physical. It's hardware.
It's the grid transformers, the specialized components.
The physical ability to actually move the power. So if the global race for AI dominance is fundamentally constrained by energy,
And energy is constrained by the grid's ability to move it.
is the competition for the future of technology now just a race for power grid dominance? A race to see who can build, control, and secure the best infrastructure to feed the AI beast?
That might be the real strategic choke point of the whole electro-state era.
I think it is.
That's a mind-bending thought to end on. You now have the blueprint for understanding the rise of the electrodollar and China's strategic doctrine. Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive. We hope this analysis has given you a clear and simple understanding of these really complex sources and the profound shifts they describe.
It was a pleasure.
And if you want to explore more topics like this, all distilled down to their core insights, please be sure to follow the channel.